Hello there, you're welcome to HisGov TV, and my name is Collins Nanaya Abebrese. In this video, I am going to introduce you to the 1992 Constitution, perhaps the features of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. And there is no doubt that the 1992 Constitution is one of the longest serving constitutions that the country has ever had since its independence from 1957, from the British colonial rule. And so in this video specifically, I'll introduce you to the features of this 92 constitutions and everything, of course, surrounding the 1992 constitutions. Now, I have done other videos on the constitutional developments in the Gold Coast. If you care also to check it out on the channel. So beginning from 1907, of course, Clifford Constitution, upwards, coming down of colonial constitutions as well as the post-independent constitutions. I have a lot of videos on all the constitutional developments in Ghana in the Gold Coast, so you can check that for yourself. So before we begin with our discussions today, I would like to remind you to subscribe to our channel for more of these educative content, and share our links also to your friends who may be interested. So let's begin with our lesson. So let's start with our lesson objectives for today. So our lesson objectives for today will be very, very simple. That by the end of this lesson, you should be able to discuss some of the features of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. And this constitution is still in place, unlike the previous constitutions that we learned, which had been overthrown or, of course, suspended by military regimes. This constitution, however, is still the constitution that the Republic of Ghana is still using today, even though there are so many issues around it surrounding this constitution. Now, so that will be our lesson objectives, to be able to discuss the features of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. So let's begin with our discussion. Now, to give you a background to the promulgation of this constitution in 1992, bear in mind that the Gold Coast had several constitutions since its independence. We had the 1960 constitution, we had the 1969 constitution, and then we've also had 1979 constitution, and then the 1992 constitution. So there has been some different forms of constitution, and like I earlier indicated, you can check in our video. You will get access to some of these constitutions. Now, the reason why the country had so many constitutions was basically simple. It was because of the military rule. So the National Liberation Council, for example, the NLC, came to suspend the 1960 constitution after the overthrow of Nkrumah, and then in 1969 it was also, of course, suspended by a Champon, who was also from the National Redemption Council. So because of the coup, anytime there is coup, then the military junta would suspend that particular constitution, which was in place at the time of the coup, and that has accounted for the reason why Ghana has more than so many of our constitutions, and the current one is the longest, of course, serving one, the 1992 constitution. So this constitution came after Rawlings overthrew the 1979 constitution with the PNDC. When he overthrew Liman, he was suspended the 1979 constitution, and Rawlings ruled all throughout from 1981 up to 1992, when the country, people were agitating that the country should be returned to democratic rule, and therefore there was a need for a new constitution to be promulgated or introduced in the country, and that paved the way for the introduction of this 1992 constitution. And Ghana has been using this constitution ever since ever since 1992 up till now. And so the 1992 constitution is the first constitution of the First Republic, of course, and it was promulgated, or it was introduced, or it started to be in force on 7th January 19 93, and it began with the late Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. A referendum was conducted in 1992, and the constitution came to be accepted, but it came into force or being in 1993. So we refer to the constitution as the 1992 constitution, basically because it was introduced in 1992. That's the people of Ghana accepted to be ruled by this constitution in 1992, and that is why it is called the 1992 constitution. Good. Now let's take a look at the features of the 1992 constitution. So the main features of the 1992 constitutions. Now the first of it has to do with the executive. So the constitution established the executive branch, which had for the president as well as the vice president. So the 1992 Fourth Republican Constitution of Ghana provides for a presidential system of government, and that is a monocephalous executive president, which combines both the role of the head of state and the head of government at the same time. Now the president is elected by universal adult suffrage for a fixed term of 4 years and eligible for a second term. Now the president is also the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. All right, and so per this, when we compare this constitution to the 1969 constitution, where we had for the constitution provided for both offices, we had a separate office for the head of state, who was Akufo-Addo, and he was the president, and then we also had the office of the prime minister, K. Busia, who was the head of government. So it created two offices, but in the 1992 constitution, one office was created for the presidency. So the president became the head of government, and at the same time, the president of the Republic of Ghana. Now he was to be the president was to be elected through adult universal suffrage. That is adults who were about 18 years or so, and also a fixed term of 4 years. So you go for 4 years, then you have another term to also go for another 4 years. Okay, and then after those 4 years, 4 years, which is 8 years, and that is all. You are not eligible to stand again. Now the vice president, the constitution also made for provision for the vice president. Okay, and he was also elected together with the president. Now the vice president acts in the absence of the president. Okay, and then at the death or at the event of the death of the president, the vice president was sworn in as the president, and the qualification of the vice president should also be the same as the qualification of the president. So that is that. Now let's take a look at the functions of the president under the 1992 constitution, and this is very, very, very important, because we should know so that we can be able to, really check the power of the president. Now the functions and powers of the president under the 1992 constitution. The first one was that the president is the head of state. He is also the head of government, as I earlier indicated. Okay, and he is also the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. So he is the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. So he controls the Ghana Army. Okay, now 2, the president appoints ministers within and outside parliament with approval from parliament. Okay, now the majority of the ministers of state are appointed from among members of parliament by the president. So the president appoints for ministers under the 1992 constitution, and these ministers could be appointed from both those who are in parliament, that is MPs, or those who are not MPs. And so, for instance, in Ghana today, we have Ken Ofori-Atta, who is not an MP, but he is in parliament. And then he is a minister. And we also have, of course, somebody like the Minister of Information, Kojo Oponkroma, who is also, an MP, and also at the same time as a minister. So that is that. Now, the third one was that the president is also responsible for formulation and implementation of government policies. Good. And then also the fourth one, the president chairs the cabinet meeting. Now the cabinet, whose number shall not exceed 19 or be less than 10, shall also consists of the president, the vice president, and the ministers of state. We shall later talk about the cabinet and what the cabinet stands for in the course of our discussion. Okay, but however, bear in mind that for the president chaired, of course, the cabinet. All right, good. And then the president, also in consultation with the Council of State, also makes important appointments for such as judges for superior courts, heads of commission, and top government officials. And this we see all the time, that the president is appointing judges, or the president is appointing people in the heads of commission, especially CHRAJ, the EC, and other top for government officials. All these things were the function of the president. Now, the last function of the president under the 1992 Constitution was that the president also determines salaries and emolument of top government officials, such as Speaker of Parliament, Chief Justice, Auditor General, and among others, on the recommendation of a committee appointed by the president himself. So the president sets up a committee, and this committee will look into the salary structure of these government officials. All right, and then they recommend it to the president that you can pay, for instance, the Speaker of Parliament for this amount of money. Those are recommendations, and the president is not bound to accept those recommendations. And there was a time, just quite, I think during the COVID time or so, when government workers were getting somewhere around 20 or 15% for salary increase. We heard, we heard the president announce of about 70% increase, and there was even this issue of he even trying to pay the office of the first lady, which people felt was unconstitutional. So it is the mandate, according to the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, that he is the one who determines the salary and emolument of these top government officials. Okay, good. So this is what the president does under the 1992 Constitution. Now let's take a look at another feature of the 1992 Constitution, and this feature is quite very simple. This Constitution also, the 92 Constitution also provided for a unicameral legislature. Now the Constitution of Ghana provides for a unicameral legislature. The Constitution defines the power and functions of the legislative body called Parliament, which where the elected representatives of the people make laws for the effective administration of the country. The duration of Parliament shall be 4 years, beginning from the date of its first meeting. A bill passed by Parliament must receive the assent of the President before it becomes a law. Now, very, very interesting that sometimes, citizens, we often have this misconception about the role of the legislature. Now, let's take a look at the functions and powers of legislature under the 1992 Constitution. So, what are the functions or the role that the legislature play under the 1992 Constitution? Now, one, the legislature controls government spending. You understand? So, through the appropriation of bills, the legislature is made to control government spending. Okay, and the legislature is the only body that approves how money is to be raised and spent in the state. You get a point? So, the revenue and expenditure of the executive is controlled by Parliament. The legislature controls the purse of government. So, if the executive has, say, 10,000 Ghana cedis, it is the legislature that is going to control how these monies are spent. So, if the executive comes out with this project, I want to spend this amount of money on this, it is the legislature that would have to agree. Parliament would have to agree on that amount before it could be spent. And so, if the country is bankrupt, you blame the legislature. You don't blame the president, because it is the mandate under the 92 Constitution for the legislature to control the purse of government. But very often we come to have of course, the government having majority in parliament, and so whatever decision that the executive takes to parliament or to the legislature, they pass it, they agree upon that. And so if the government is bankrupt, you blame your legislature, your MPs. Now again, two, they also approved budget, approval of budget. The annual fiscal policy of government, which is the budget, is subject to the approval of parliament. All right, the parliament sees the approval of the budget estimates every year as prepared and presented to parliament by the executive through the finance minister. All right, and the parliament has the right to either accept or reject that budget. Interesting, right? Yes. So the role of parliament is very, very crucial under the 1992 for constitution, as you have seen and witnessed. Okay, now again, parliament or the legislature is also into law making. So that is the third point. The legislature is also into law making. The legislature is the arm of government responsible for making, amending, and repealing of laws to regulate the state. With this function, the legislative body enacts new laws, make changes in the existing laws, and even withdraw the outmoded ones. So it is not the role of the judiciary to make laws. No. Lawyers or judiciary do not make laws. They only interpret the laws. The laws are made by the legislature. So it is very, very, very important. Now, four, the legislature again is responsible for vetting and approval of nominees, and these nominees could be ministers, people who are being nominated by the president into public offices. So every minister would have to be, every appointed minister would have to be approved by parliament, by the legislature. So it is within the power of the legislature not to approve on the president's or on the executive's nomination of a particular candidate. And this we've seen it quite recently when Howard Salifu, yeah, I think so. No, it's Howard Kumsin, rather, the current minister of fisheries. During his vetting, there was this whole thing that the minority was saying, we will not approve, we will not approve, we will not approve. Then all of a sudden, she was approved, and Ghanaians were angry, and people were angry at them. Yes, it is within the power of the legislature to do that, and I think that this is, of course, this is apart from debating issues and other things. I think this is the crucial role of the legislature under the 1992 constitution. Now, one important thing I want to say here is that, you see, in all this role that we have talked about, the legislature is not responsible for executing public work, as in executing or providing his people with social amenities. No. And that is one thing we should change. We should re-educate the public on it. The legislature is only into these things. They are not there to construct roads, to build hospitals, to do whatever. That is not their work. But interestingly, they also go around parading themselves as ambassadors of development. I'll build this, I'll build that, when they know it is not under their mandate in the 1992 constitution. Now let's take a look at the other feature of the 1992 constitution. Now the next feature of the 1992 constitution also has to do with the independence of the judiciary. All right. So in order to fulfill the right of fair trial and equality before the law, and to make it possible for citizens to exercise their freedom, to enforce their rights and liberties in a court of law, the independence of the judiciary from the executive and the legislature is also entrenched in this constitution. You see, for there to be equality for rule of law in the country, there must be an independence of the judiciary. So if you have an issue with the government, the judiciary should be independent in itself to be able to adjudicate the case, being fair, objective in their analysis, not taking instructions from the executive or the legislature branch of government. And these people always find it very difficult because they think that the same of course constitution has given the president the mandate to appoint chief justices and stuff like that. So, and I mean courts, I mean of course judges to the Supreme Court. So how independent are these people going to be? How objective are these judges going to be? And that has been the problem, that today we see a lot of most of our politicians, they don't trust even the court because they feel if the president of that appointed them, especially the EC and all of that. All these debate, all these of course back and forth between the NDC and the EC is all because of the fact that the EC chair was appointed by the president. The chief justice or the judges in the court were appointed by the president. So many a times opposition of leaders feel some way somewhere, but they are the same people that of course made these laws, and so that is their own of course their own of a cup of tea. Now bear in mind that under the judiciary it was going to be chaired by the it was going to be headed by the chief of course justice. And then according to the constitution, the judiciary shall be made up of the Supreme Court. So these are the institutions of course that made up of course the judiciary system. We had the Supreme Court, we had the Court of Appeal, we have the High Court, we have the regional tribunals, and then we also have the lower courts and other stuff. So this is what the constitution is all about. Now these are of course some of the features. Bear in mind that the judiciary is only there to interpret the laws and to ensure that there is fairness in the country, equality under the 1992 constitution. Now another important feature of this 1992 constitution has to do with cabinet, the establishment of the establishment of cabinet. Now the cabinet would also consist of the president, the vice president, and not less than 10 or more than 19 ministers of state. Now the president presides over for cabinet meetings, so it will be chaired by the president. Okay. Now the vice president assumes that position in case the president is not around. Now the cabinet. So what then is the role of the cabinet? Now the role of the cabinet is that it shall assist with the president in determining and implementing general policies of the government. So every policy, of course, the policies in the country are implemented and introduced and brought about by cabinet. So if the country is not moving on in the right direction, in a way, it means that the policies that for cabinet brought was not, of course, coming. Okay, and very at times, quite recently, during this whole NPP race, presidential race, whatever, you heard some journalists who question Ken Override, this guy, this man, I've forgotten his name, Kenneth Japan, but you were part of the government, of course, that was in office, and you did not do this, you did not do that. Why are you now telling us you're going to do that? And then the question he poses at them is, am I part of the present cabinet? You understand? He is not part of the present cabinet. The cabinet are the people who are responsible for implementing government policies, introducing government policies under the 92 constitution. So if something is wrong, you blame cabinet, you don't blame an MP. All right? So you blame the ministers who find themselves in there. Okay, and it is very, very, very important, very, 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 of course, very, 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 of course, crucial. Now, under the 92 constitution, another feature is the rule of law. Okay, and this rule of law is a principle of what that states that the law, nobody is above the law. Let me put it in that way. Not even the president is above the law. Under this rule of law, everybody is within the confines of the law. Nobody is above the law, and no law should also be superior to the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. Fantastic. So I think these and many more are some of the features of the 1992 Constitution. But I think this is where time will only permit us to talk about. We have another important one that talks about the freedom of the freedom and the independence of the media, that the media should also be free. There shouldn't be any, of course, censorship on the media. All right, okay. And there is also the Council of State, for the Council of State, which also make a provision for about 25 member for council whose only advice is to, whose only role is to advise the president on the performance of his duty, and that's also part of the 1992 constitution. There are many other features of the 1992 constitution, but I believe that these are the most important for ones. So thank you very much for your time, and do not forget to subscribe to our channel for more of these educative content. And of course, let's also hear your view on the 1992 constitution, because there has been a whole lot of debate about this constitution. A lot of people are saying that it should be overhauled, it should be changed. Others are also saying that it should be amended, and all of that. There are so many controversies surrounding this 92 constitution. Let's have your view in the comment section for us. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day, and bye bye.